Today I'm going to unbox and take a quick look at Inferno, Guelphs and Ghibellines Vie for Tuscany, 1259 to 1261. This is volume 3 of the Levy and Campaign series. And this game design is Volko, who developed the Levy and Campaign series, but the lead on this, or at least the first listed, is Enrico Acerbi. So, and I apologize if I mispronounce any of the names in this episode, but that's something that I do. This is published by GMT Games, which was kind enough to send me this, so very excited about this one. This one is something that I've been looking forward for some time. Now, why is that? Well, first off, I've covered, or I have all the Levy and Campaign series that is available to date. Start off with Nevsky, and one of the groundbreaking aspects of this system is that it's operational. It's medieval operational, which is not common in our hobby at all, or in the wargaming world, is to cover the operational aspects of medieval campaigns and combat, and it really does get into the nuts and bolts of operations and logistics. One of the things that is a benchmark of an operation game is supply and logistics, and these games, the Levy and Campaign series, really goes into that. It goes into different types of transportation and how you move your supplies. It deals with different types of supplies. It deals with different seasons and the kind of aspects that affect supply as well. And it also goes into the combat aspect, but also the other logistical aspect, which is how do you raise troops, right? This is a feudal system, medieval system, and so that's where the levying comes from, as well as getting troops to fight for you and trying to keep them fighting for you for a certain period of time. And so each of these series, or each of these games in the series, go into a different aspect depending upon the nature of this. Like, this was the Teutons in 1240. This was in Spain in 1085, and now we go to Tuscany in 1259. So very interesting series, and interesting mechanisms that are brought to light. Also, I was interested in this in that I didn't know anything about the Guelphs and Ghibellines, to be honest with you, until maybe 4-5 years ago, about that time. Maybe a little bit less, but why would I know anything about the Guelphs and Ghibellines, right? I mean, I didn't study medieval or Italian history. So, but I've been working on a chart for years now of like trying to track major battles and major conflicts and seeing if I had a game that simulates that. It's kind of a master kind of chart kind of thing, and I'm not trying to track every single conflict or every single war, but I'm trying to get the highlights. And I ran across this conflict in my studies and didn't know anything about it, and it kind of intrigued me. Just the name itself. I mean, you don't see a name like that. Guelphs and Ghibellines, what the heck does that mean? And so that kind of got it on my radar again. They were 4 or so years ago, and but there's not a lot out there on this. I mean, very, very little is out there on this. So when I saw that this was going to come out, I was like, wow. So I'm killing several birds with one stone here with medieval operations, conflict that I don't know anything about, but I'm other than what the little I've read on it, but I've not seen any kind of simulation or gaming on it. So that's another reason why I wanted to get this. And again, thankful for the designers and GMT, especially GMT, for sending this to me. So here's the back of the box here. It's 1 to 2 players. It says 1 to player there. I don't, unless they're changed things here. The previous editions of the Levy and Campaign series don't have a solo specific system, but they say that it lends itself to be played two-handed, and it kind of does, but it's no more special attention to the solo player than what you would have in any probably hex encounter game, right? Um, so I mean, there is a way you place your orders. So I actually find that, unless you come up with kind of a system to randomize your orders or put dummy orders or something like that, then there is some hidden information in this game. So, but they always say 1 to 2 on this. 3 to 4 hours. Complexity is 5, and solitaire suitability is 7. I might flip those. I might put the solitaire suitability a little bit lower, and I might put the complexity a little bit higher. These are not overly complex games, but I mean, if you're used to hex encounters and CRTs, combat results tables, well, then this takes a little bit of a leap, right? You're having to kind of relearn or learn some new aspects of what you're doing in this game. It's got point-to-point movement, but a lot of it is centering around raising your troops, keeping your troops on board, and supplying them. And you're very limited. It's a very tight game. The previous ones in the series are very tight. I mean, you can never do everything you want to do. So you got to make some really tough decisions on your campaigns and where do you want to attack and what do you want to do, and that's going to be, of course, based upon what the objectives are for this particular campaign. There's usually a full game in these, and then there are scenarios, shorter scenarios, and they might have different objectives in those scenarios. So you're always looking at that and trying to figure out what can I do, what do I need to do it. And so there's an emphasis in these games on planning. It's not just a matter of, I got all these troops here, what's their movement value, I'm going to move them, and then I'm going to attack, and then check to see if they're in supply. No, you've got to plan well ahead on where are people at, what kind of supplies do I have, where do they need to go, I can't do everything I want to do. And so it's very tight and it's very tense in those regards. And then, so learning that system, I mean, again, the mechanics are not overly complex, but learning how to manipulate those mechanics or learning how to use those mechanics to accomplish your objectives, that is a little bit tougher in these games, in my opinion, right? This is all my opinion, right? Because you're listening to me. But it's a different experience than your typical war game in that regard. So I find that the complexity, I would not put this mid-range. I would put it a little bit higher. Again, just because the interaction of some of the new mechanics and new concepts versus what you have to do. Here's your cards. And there's usually, activation cards, like you're gonna, you'll put your plan out of who you're going to move, which of your lords you're going to move or activate, and then when you flip them over, then that person activates, and they do what you can do based on your activities. There's usually events or abilities or things that can augment the game. You've got a turn track up here, and that is going to keep track of who do you have and who's coming into play and who's leaving play, right? Because you have this kind of term of service with some of these knights and lords and everything that you're bringing to bringing into your campaign, and they might have a limited time of what they're going to stay in the campaign. You might have to pay them extra to keep them longer, and all that stuff's tracked up here. Plus that also tracks the seasons. There's different things that happen at different points of the season. And the like. But enough of that. And there's an example of the board as well. There's some counters in the game, but a lot of your stuff is tracked by some like wooden bits with some stickers on it, but also a lot of times all your units and stuff, like whether you have mounted units or armored knights or militia or what have you, they're all covered like in little colored wooden bits. So anyway, enough of all that, right? And by my disclaimer that I usually say, especially I give this disclaimer when I go into when I do like after action reports and talk about gameplay. Please do not use what I say as a means to explain the rules and play the game, unless you want to play it wrong, because I inevitably play games wrong the first few times I play it, but I learn from that. All right, this is the box, a nice thick box. And let's go up a little bit so we got a little bit more perspective on this and see a little bit more of the goodies inside. A nice thick box here because you've got some good heavy components in here. You're going to get your rules of play. You can see here this is Levy and Campaign Series Volume 3. And you also have a background book. I usually like these background books because, again, I'm interested in this topic and learning about it, and this will augment some of the stuff that the little I've read or found on it. Here's your rules of play. It is a 32-page rule book. You have a complete index on the back here, and actually the last 2 pages is an index. And then here, this might be a example of play, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's a setup. So let's look at the rules of play here. You've got summary of Inferno changes from Nevsky and summary of Inferno changes from Roved. So this is kind of interesting. So if you're very familiar with this 1 and 2 in the series, this will give you kind of an update on what's different between the series. Because it is a series game, the basic core mechanic is the same, and but there are they're modifying them to address that period in time, those types of leaders and troops and environment and terrain and conditions of that time period. And so this is in the 1259 to 1261, and in Tuscany. Different time, different people, different environment, and so there's going to be tweaks to some of the rules in there, and I kind of like that, how they update that. It's dual column. It's typical GMT style of dual column. It's got the case system. It's got color. It's got notes. You have design notes in yellow and play notes in green, and then you have some of these gray highlighted area as well. You got your introduction components. And then it's going to talk about each one of these different components and what you need to know about that. We've got revolt and treachery. I don't know if that's covered in the other ones. That's interesting. I haven't played the other 2 in a while, so interesting. Lords and vassals, that's covered in all these games. And so this is... there's a lot going on here, right? So that's one reason I say, just by looking at this, there's a lot of colors and notes and stuff, and say, yeah, I wouldn't put this at a 5, but again, that's me as far as complexity. Here's explaining your leaderboards, this is where you kind of keep track of everything. It talks about your leader's abilities. You put their troops, those little wooden bits, right on there. You keep track of any capabilities. Those are those cards I was telling you about that kind of modify the leaders or the situation, or they can kind of be played as events sometimes. They keep track of their capabilities there. But let's have, as a matter of fact, we just pop up here so you can take a look a little bit about what some of these boards do. But it has their ratings and starting forces, their seats. That's kind of like their home base. It's got starting assets. And then you can put event cards, you can put capabilities, and the like. So quite a bit going on. That's basically your focus of the game is managing these leader mats here. You got your forces, as I said here. There's those little wooden tokens and bits, whether you're mounted or large force or militia force, and they're different colors. Here's your assets. They have a cart, ship, provisions, loot, and coin. Again, this is focusing on logistics. This is focusing on, supplying your troops, keeping them fed. This is kind of the guns and bullets and food of World War II. I mean, you're just dealing with carts and food and the like, and loot and coin. Some of the people that you're hiring, these lords and vassals, are you're paying for them, and so that comes into play as well. Here's the cards. Here's setup and calendar. That's that turn track that I talked about at the top. And here's how you kind of set up a table space. This does take up a little bit of space on a table with all these, if you're playing with multi-players for their different factions. Here's the Levy, disband, muster. Again, there's a lot about, again, it's levy and campaign. So not only is it logistics, it's levy. It's getting your troops. It's maintaining your troops. Call to arms. Here's campaign. Plans. Command, march. And it's point-to-point movement, but, you have limitations on how you move and all the like there. Siege, storm, and sally. And then, there is combat here. It's not all the logistics, right? There is combat in this game, and so there's a unique rule set on how you deal with combat. And again, it's not overly complex, but you're dealing with it at kind of an operational and campaign level. So there's, there's still some tactics that go on, and there's sieges, but having a good assortment of combined arms can be to your advantage in certain circumstances. Here's supply, other commands, and then end of campaign, then credit. So looking at 25 pages of rules. And then the rest of this is scenarios, or talking about the scenarios. Yeah, here's those different scenarios you have in here. Looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 scenarios, and then maybe a campaign game too. Here's the background book. Really thick here. And that is 64 pages. And then these are some of the different, I think these represent some of the cards that you can get, the different capabilities. You get a complete kind of inventory and roster of all the different counters that are in this game here. And then let's look at the rest. This probably has this has a quick start in it. As you can see, there's quite the layout there. This has a quick start, and this might actually have a example of play maybe. So it's got strategy. Let's look if there's a quick start, strategy, solitaire. Oh, they do have some rules on solitaire. Well, let's see what it says. I think it just says it, play both sides. Here's an explanation of play. Here's a battle mini game, so you do kind of have a playthrough of a battle. Here's the campaign history. And so, yeah, so then there's a lot of history in this book as well. So, yeah, let's look at what it says on solitaire there. And here's your solitaire. Inferno includes no solitaire system, but a single player readily can handle both sides. Yeah. I mean, again, there is a little bit of stuff in the planning that, you've got to try to be true to your side when you're doing that. Here's the stickers, and because these are going to go on the little round wooden bits that you keep track of your leaders on the board. And that's really the main thing that's on the board is these guys right here. You have a screen here that you can kind of do for setup and the like if you're trying to keep stuff. I think there's some optional rules on keeping stuff hidden. So there's a couple of screens in there. They're nice. And they're, yeah, the same art, just flipped on there. There's some player aids in here. Quite a few player aids in here. So, and here's the Lords and Vassals, forces and ratings, seats for all the different ones on the Guelph side. So you have a nice little sheet here to kind of figure out who's who and what they have. And here is the Ghibelline, their side as well. So you get a little summary of the Lord and Vassal, and then the kind of their ratings and what they have, and then their seats, kind of where they start at. Revolt and Treachery summary. So there's going to be quite a bit of shifting sides in some of the stuff. It'd be interesting if they take Levy in the campaign to like, you know, Samurai Japan, because there was a lot of this going on there at times. So that's your revolt tables. Here's your commands, and there's 2 of these, so there should be identical. So this is the thing you're going to use the most in the game, because this tells you what your commands are. So when you activate a lord, then this is what you can do. You can do a march, you can do a siege if you're in that situation. Storm, again, that's dealing when you're in that situation. Sally, these all 3 dealing with like a siege situation at a city. You got supply, you got forage, ravage, sail, tax, pass, and then treachery. So those are your different commands here. It tells what the requirements are and then the procedure to do it. And then of course you can always look in the rules, but this is a nice little handy reference to do that. This talks about the different forces and their abilities. So you've got these are horse forces here, these are foot forces, and as you can see they have little different shape bits and then the different colors as well. So you can keep track, and then it talks about how they do for strikes, that's, you know, combat, what they do for protection, again, that's kind of your defense in combat, and then any notes on them. Then you have how the different strongholds, how you deal with them, because they might have different wall abilities, they might have different, you know, what you can garrison and how you surrender, and what kind of VP and spoils markers they have, so all that's all covered here. And then you've got the battle and storm procedure, talking about how it works, and some notes here. Now this looks kind of busy, but once you've kind of read through the rules, once you've gone through a couple of battles, and I think there's a battle mini game in the book here, this starts becoming relatively easy to follow. But again, I wouldn't put that at a 5, right? I put this a little bit higher. Here's your sequence of play, where you do the levy part first, and all the different parts of that, and then campaign and all the different parts of that, and some other notes out here. So that's a nice little reference. You got 2 of those for each side. Here are the counter sheets here, and they're kind of pre-rounded. Most of them are, so I mean, I would not clip these. They're nice and thick, and they come out nicely, so you really don't have to do much with them. So there's 1 counter sheet, 2 counter sheets, and these are kind of keeping track of I think these are the vassals, I think, that you can put on the board to keep track of certain things or how they come into play. Some siege and walls there. And then some of your 3rd counter sheet, which is a lot of supplies. It's your cart, your provisions, which is your food, your loot, your coins, and the ships. So those are double-sided as well. Then you have the mounted map board. Ooh, a lot of stuff. We'll get to that here in a second. You got 6 dice of 2 different colors, orange and black. We've got some cards here. These are those player boards or lord boards, or whatever you want to call them. Here, a lot of wooden bits. This is all keep track of your lords on the board, but also the different types of troops and whether they're foot or horse. All that's in there. Then you've got the different cards, which kind of deals with your activations. But let's go to these first here. So these are the different leaders. So it's going to have your service, lordship, and command. Service usually, I think, is like it's you roll to see if it's going to stay in play and the length of the service, I think. Commands might be the number of actions it can do. Here's its starting forces. Here's where you keep like your assets and vassals down here. You know, keep track of your coins and provisions and everything. I think this might be the starting stuff. And then it shows its seat here. So these are single-sided because they're going to be off to the side of the board when they come into play here. So you have one of these for each lord. And then there's also kind of their banner, you know, kind of symbol to keep track of who they are. This person starts off with quite a bit here. And you saw some of those counters for like their vassals. That's where you'd put them here. when they get in play. So quite a bit of, these are nice and thick, you know. But again, this is kind of the focus of the game, where you're going to be keeping these, keeping on track of all your stuff. And here's a little battle board here. Like to do when you do a battle off the side, you can put your units and figure out to keep track of who's doing what on there. Yeah, not essential to the game, but it's a nice little added effect there. Let's look at some of these cards here. These are the Arts of War here. So these are dealing with, so these are different like abilities or capabilities or events. I can't remember which one of these are, but these will modify stuff in the game. You know, it has who can use it and what it does and the like. So you've got several. These are nice, good cards. This is your typical GMT stock, good, thick cards. You're not doing a lot of shuffling or anything, so it's not like you need to have these, you know, be able to shuffle too much. You have to sort them out, shuffle them a little bit, but it's not like a deck builder game. Then we've got, these are more Arts of War. So those are the Arts of War for the Ghibellines, maybe, and these are for the Guelphs. And I know I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. A little sticky on some of these, but not too bad. So you've got a whole set of those. Greek Fire, that's cool. So, yeah, so those are your Arts of War cards. Then these are going to be your activations. Basically, this is where you're going to be putting, I don't know if I started those anywhere. This is the, where you're going to be keeping track of your different lords and who's doing what when. And these are the same thickness of cards here. Yeah. So here they are. So this is just going to be the name of that leader. So, so he's got 3 command cards. So they each have, I think, maybe have 3. So you're going to be making a decision during your planning phase of who you want to, like, so if I want this person to go and then this person to do something before that person, you put a stack of cards here. This is basically their commands. So you're planning out who's going to do what and when. And these are pass cards. And so then that's how you, then once you've done that planning, that's how then you start doing your activations, and that's what happens. And sometimes if you planned poorly, right, you've got somebody can't really do what you want them to do anymore because the board state changed. Well, that goes into your planning. So that's what happens. So these are the ones that you kind of during your planning phase, figure out who you want to do where, or what order of their activations, and then you put them on the board there. So let's clear out some space here and try to take a look at this map, because this map does look nice. I generally am impressed with the maps they've come up with. It's a mounted map, and it's not large. They don't have to be large, because again, a lot of the game is played, or a lot of it is tracked on these lord boards, whatever they're called. I call them lord boards. Let's pull up a little bit more here so you can see the full map. So at the top there, you can see the that's your turn track, but it also keeps track of all your victory, levy, and campaign. So you're checking each turn like for victory, and then you do your levy campaign piece, and then it has notes of what's going on there. And then depending on the scenario, different ones of these people or lords are going to come into play, and you'll keep track of all that up there. Then here's the board. So you've got your different types of cities. You have here they are right here. You have cities. I'm not seeing that. You have cities, towns, and castle. Tell you what, let's go a little bit deeper. You've seen the full board, so let's go let's do a little bit up close and personal so you can see some of these. So this is a city here. These are castles. And no, this is a town here. This is a city. So you have a city here, a city up here, and then these are towns, and then these are castles. You've got some seats over here on the board, so that correspond to where these lord seats are. And then you've got a road and track. So you've got road, which is usually going to be better for movement, and then tracks. And that's, again, for logistics purposes of moving stuff around or moving your troops and getting supplies around as well. So there you have it. This is what you get in a box of Inferno in a box. Quite a bit of bits there, and as I said, I've been pleased with this system in that it's a very interesting system. For me, though, one reason why I wouldn't classify it as a 5, I keep on beating that dead horse there, is that, I mean, every time if you play this like several games back to back, if you play this on a regular basis, it's not that hard to pick back up again and understand what's going on. But if you don't, then I find that it does take a little bit of getting back into to figure out, well, all right, what am I doing here again? What are my actions? And each of the series is a little bit different as well. There's some new things that are unique to that aspect of the world. So anyway, that is what you get in a box of Inferno, Guelphs and Ghibellines Vie for Tuscany 1259 to 1261. Love to know your thoughts on this, whether on this, on any of the other series. This is number 3 in the series. I know they have at least, I think, 3 or more that are scheduled to come out at some point. But a very interesting system, of a very unique coverage of these operations in this time period. Medieval operations is something that is, again, not widely covered. So anyway, thanks for stopping by. The best way I know you stop by is drop me a comment about this game, about any of the Levy and campaign series, or anything that's on your mind. Just keep it civil. Have a good one and take care. Thanks for watching.